Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Dawn Campbell, the Sales and Marketing Director at the IAPC&M, and welcome to another CPD and Business Building webinar. This time in the hot seat, we have the dynamic business mindset coach, Nina Cooke, who's been featured in Forbes and the BBC and so on. So we're looking forward to spending some time with you this morning. How are you, Nina?
I'm very well, thank you, Dawn.
Excellent. Okay, so if everybody would like to put their videos on and keep themselves on mute until it's time to ask questions, and please do use the chat box to say who you are, where you're from. I can see people in different countries, so that's great to have international attendance this morning, and post your questions there and I'll make sure that Nina gets them. So everybody's read Nina's bio, so I'm not going to just read that out again, but I always like to find out something a little bit different about our guest speakers, as you know, if you're a regular here. It's very apt for today's subject because Nina loves a no. And I'm sure she'll tell us more about that later. Presumably it's so she can flip it to a yes. Which is obviously what today's webinar is all about, because the word no is what we most fear in a sales context. So today's 45 minutes webinar is about releasing our blocks to selling. And it's a prelude to the main event in May when we celebrate 23rd anniversary of International Coaching Week, which the IAPC&M will be hosting for a week-long celebration, the 3rd to the 7th of May. And Nina, I think you're on Thursday the 6th at 10 a.m. So you'll be able to hear Nina again do a masterclass on this subject. But for now, let's release our blocks to selling. And let me hand over to Nina. Grab your CPD pads and your pens and let's learn.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I'd love this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, as Dawn said, she will let me know what questions you have. And if there's something that as I'm saying something and you really want to ask something about it, or you have an insight, you want to jump in, Dawn, I hope that's okay. But I would really love to be able to make sure that this is really relevant to all of you. So sales conversations, I mean, this is, I always call it a mind game. Obviously, we need to have a decent sales script. We need to know what sort of questions, what sort of information we need. We need to know how we're going to build the bridge between the client's challenges and the solution that we have for them. When I work with clients and they have a big challenge around sales calls, the sales calls is integral to becoming an entrepreneur and getting clients. Without having sales conversations, we cannot book clients in. You may have a business where you're getting sales online. So you have a program and someone has to read the sales page and then they click a button, they get taken to a payment processor and they can buy your program without ever having to have a sales conversation. But at some point, when you're selling high ticket offers, you're probably going to need to have that sales conversation. So this is completely a mindset game. And the reason I say that is it's never the sales conversation that feels scary, it's your perception of it. It's the thoughts that you have about the sales conversation. It's the anticipation that you build up in your mind about what it's going to be like. The wonderful thing about each and every one of us is that we are unique, original thinkers. There is no one in the world who thinks exactly like you. There are over 7.5 billion unique thinkers in the world. So this isn't something that you're just stuck with. You can absolutely change your thinking, your perception of a sales call. And this is what I'd like to really get you thinking about today in a big way, so it changes the way that you approach them forever. There are so many things to say about sales conversations. I just want to get out the main bits in today's call. First thing is you're not stuck with your thinking about what sales conversation entails. You can change your beliefs around it. You may have limiting beliefs around sales calls I would guarantee that you have, because just about everyone has them. So the way to find out what your limiting beliefs are around sales conversations is to do this. Think about your next sales conversation. You may have a sales call booked in your calendar, or you may be thinking, oh, I need to put out my offer, I need to get my message out there, which is going to, and my call to action is to book a sales conversation with me. So just think about having your next sales call. And as you think about it, become aware of the thinking that it generates inside of you. So when you're thinking about it, write this down or think about it. I find it very valuable to write things down. So what comes up in your mind when you're thinking about that next sales call? And as you're thinking about it and writing about it, you can start picking out your blocks, your limiting beliefs around it. Very common blocks around sales calls are things like, I'm no good at selling. Selling is manipulative. Selling means I have to be sleazy. I have to persuade the person to want what I have. They're not going to see the value. They're not going to want to pay that much. I'm going to hate saying my price because they're going to say no. Rejection is scary. Rejection is scary is one of the biggest fears we have in life. Because if someone says no to us, then what does that mean about us? Does that mean that we're not good enough? That we're never going to be able to make this a success? That no one's ever going to want to buy what we have? That we're a failure or a disappointment? Sales conversations can also bring out another big phenomenon that we deal with on a daily basis, and that is impostor syndrome. And that is, well, why would they want to buy my service? They can go to someone else who's better than me, who's more experienced than me. They'll be willing to pay someone else more money, but they're not willing to pay to me because I'm not very good at what I do. I'm not the expert I'm claiming to be. There are so many different stories we play in our heads about sales conversations. And none of them are true. Not a single one of these stories that we make up are true. And you could point to evidence and say, well, the last few sales calls I had, they all said no to me. So I'm going to likely to get a no on my next sales call. But all you're doing is you're taking past events and you're projecting them into your future as if they're the truth. And we know that's not the case because there are things that didn't work for you. You could always probably think of something right now where you tried it before, it didn't work for you, and then you tried it again and it did work. And we take that classic example, don't we, of a toddler learning to walk. The toddler doesn't stand up and start walking across the room straight away. The toddler keeps falling over and keep falling over and keep falling over. The toddler does not know the concept of failure. The toddler doesn't know the concept of, oh, if it didn't work this time, it's not going to work again. Because it just hasn't learnt that stuff from society yet. What if you didn't have any negative stories about sales conversations? You went into each conversation fresh, with curiosity, with self-belief, with standing in the value of what you are offering. What if you went into that call with that blank slate of negative stories? What could you achieve in that conversation? What would be possible for you? So this is how we make up all these negative stories, which creates all this resistance about something which is actually just a conversation you're going to have with someone. And I want to pass on a tip that really helps me in my sales conversation. I hope it's going to be useful for you. At the beginning of every sales conversation with a prospect, I say, I don't want this to be a sales conversation. I want this to be just a good chat between you and me, where I can find out about your business, where you're struggling, why you feel you're not as far ahead as you want to be. And then I will offer my solution if I think we're a good fit to work together, and you can say yes or no to me. And that's it. That's all we're doing today. And it just takes that tension out of it. Because when you break down a sales conversation, it is a conversation. That's all it is. It's just an interaction between two people. Now, a big mistake that many people make, that I find my clients make when we go into a sales call, is that we don't go in as an equal. We go in as inferior to the prospect, that they're doing us a favor by booking in this call. And I really want to make sure I say the right thing. So they stay on the call, they stay engaged with me, and they feel that I have value, and they pay the investment, and they book in to work with me. I really, really hope they do that. And when we're thinking like that, we're going in at an inferior place. Going in as an equal in the sales conversation, and I have a complete 100% knowledge deep down that everyone in this world is an equal. No one is better than anyone else. I don't care if they're more successful. I don't care if they're making more money, if they live in a bigger house. Everyone is an equal. So I always go in with this mindset. Whoever I speak to, even if they're much more successful than me, we're still equals in this conversation. So go in as an equal. And the way to enter every conversation as an equal is to stand in your value. And it doesn't matter how much you're charging. It doesn't matter if you're starting out or you're very established. It doesn't matter, but stand in your value. The reason they book that conversation with you is because they know that you know more than them in that particular skill set. You're higher up the mountain than them. And that's why they booked that call with you. So stand in your value and know that this is what they want from you and that you can deliver. So this is really, really important. The value that you bring to the table is not just the value of your program. Let's say you priced your program at, I'll say randomly, say it's £2,000. That's the value of your program. However, the real value of bringing to the table is all your training, all the investment you've made in your training, all your experience, all your skills, all your knowledge. You're bringing all of that to the table every time you sit down with a prospect. You have key insights you can give them that they may not receive from anyone else ever before. So your breadth and depth of knowledge and experience is why you are doing what you do. So sometimes it's easier to forget the price of the program in the sales conversation and go in armed with all of that value. So the price that you say is actually just a small fraction of the value that you're bringing. And this is a key part of being an entrepreneur. From what I've learned is to understand and stand fully in your value each and every day. Because when you believe in your value, your prospect will pick that up from you at a deep subliminal level. You have to have that belief first. It doesn't come from the outside world. This is something that you create within you. And do whatever work it takes to believe in your value. And the quickest way that I know to believe in your value is to find those limiting beliefs, those stories that we talk ourselves into. I don't offer enough value. No one's going to pay me that much. They'll pay other people, but not me. So these are all the stories, and we all have our unique stories. We all have our unique limiting beliefs because remember, we're unique thinkers. These are the stories that have to be identified before you can start booking in all the clients that you want. I've worked with some very, very successful consultants, experts. And the thing what has made them so successful is that they talk to more people, first of all. The more people you talk to, the more clients you're going to get. That's just a given. But they also have a perception of themselves that is different from the people who aren't making as much. And that is, they believe more that they can have what they want. Now, they don't fully believe it, otherwise they would be several levels higher than they are. They're still on their journey, but they have more of a belief they can have what they want in life. And we know that what you believe becomes true. And this is just something that's bandied out, it's bandied a lot in our industry. People talk about it, but it's absolutely true. And it's those people who do the daily mindset work who are the most successful. If you read the autobiographies of the highest achievers, whether it's in, sport, whether it's in business, whether it's, in the creative arts, whatever it is, they will have done mindset work along the way to get them into that peak performance place that they need to be and to maintain. And this is something everyone can do. Everyone can start doing this work today. And the first step always is awareness. This is the first step that we need to take. Become aware of your thinking. Where are you holding yourself back? Why don't you have the results that you want? What is it about sales calls that you feel resistance around? Go through the journey of the sales conversation in your mind. Which bits scare you the most? Is it building rapport? Is it talking about your service? Or is it this bit, which I know is a big trigger point for most entrepreneurs, is it the bit where you say your price? So you may be okay in asking questions about their situation or about their challenges. You may even be okay building the bridge between their challenges and your service. You might be quite comfortable talking about your service and the benefits and matching, your benefits to their challenges. You may be good at summarizing stuff and all of that. But when it comes to the point of saying your price, I'd love to know from you now, what crops up for you? And Dawn, if that's okay, perhaps they can write in chat or unmute themselves, whatever works for you.
Yeah, certainly. Please go ahead, unmute yourself and take advantage of having an expert in the room. Ask your questions.
I think, Nina, I'll just give a go. It's like that you think you're expensive, and you're like, oh my God, is that an expensive price? Although I did some market research as well in Switzerland, and I've got really fair prices for my coaching hours. I still think, would people pay for that? If I think about myself, would I pay so much money for a coaching session? I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it boils down again to the value. I mean, it's a bit of a mix. Although I know the value, I've got experience, 30 plus years in career, etc. I know the struggles in multinationals. I have been made redundant. I know the journey of becoming an entrepreneur as well. I went through myself. But when it comes to quote, I don't feel so comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that's great awareness and great insights. There's a couple of things I would say to help you with that. One is, you said that, would you pay that sort of money for coaching?
Yeah.
Now, this is something that's worked for me, and I just want to share this with you. When I wanted to raise my prices, I didn't believe that anyone would pay that much. And I thought, okay, the way to overcome that for me is to work on my limiting beliefs, which I did. And I also did something practical. I thought, I have to invest in coaching myself at that price before I expect other people to invest with me. So I made a big leap. I found a coach that I wanted to work with who charged more than any other coach I'd ever worked with before. And I invested that money myself. I had to experience investing it myself. Now, not everyone has to do this, but this really helped me as well with my mindset, because I had to believe I was worth investing in myself for that sort of money. And now I comfortably say my higher price. And in fact, I'm going to put it up again, because I don't think it's, it doesn't represent the value that I'm actually giving. So that could be one way for you to overcome that, because you have to believe that coaching is worth it at particular price ranges with particular people who can offer you the value that would represent what you're investing in. And the other thing is your perception that who's going to pay that much. This is your own limiting belief, and you're putting it out onto that other person, your prospect. If you believe that to be true, then your prospect believes that to be true as well. But you don't know what's going on in the prospect's head. So why would you put your perception, your limiting story into someone else's head when you don't know what they're thinking? So stay out of people's wallets. You don't know what they can afford. And I wonder if you ever had a conversation when you think they can't afford me from what they've told you about their history. And then you say your price and they say, okay, let's do it. And you're like, oh, I really didn't think they would be able to afford me. I'm so surprised. And other times when you think they've got a good business, etc., they say, I can't afford that. And you think, but I was thinking that you would be able to afford it from everything you've told me. So never, ever project your negative stories onto someone else, because you just don't know. And that's when we get into mind reading. And we think we can get into other people's minds and know what they're thinking and what their response is going to be. We have no idea. And this comes back to just focus on your bit and let your prospect focus on their bit. So we put our best into every sales conversation. We're curious, we're great listeners, we're asking great questions to find out what's going on below the surface. And, we're standing in our value, we're doing all of that. That's our focus. That's the only thing we can control in the conversation. And then let the prospect control their bit. So we're not jumping, if you were playing tennis, you're hitting the ball across. You're not throwing yourself after the ball onto the other side of the net and saying to your opponent, now you play that shot back to me. I know what you need to do. We stay on our side of the court, we do our bit. The prospect stays on their side of the court, they do their bit. Now, sales conversations do require flexibility, mental flexibility. So you're not rigid. You're not saying, well, this is what I'm going to say next. You're listening. What are they talking? What have they said to me? What do they mean by that? Let's find out. That's when it becomes a conversation. And the less focused you are on guessing what the other person is thinking, staying out of their business, and the more you're just focused on providing value and being engaged, your conversations will transform.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nina.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I would just like to add to that, Nina, if I may, and build on it, because it's a popular question in the chat box. Eileen says, oh, they say it's too expensive. I would always firstly thank them for their feedback, because it means that they hear that you've heard them. And then the second thing is I would always ask them in relation to what. So if they say, oh, that's expensive, thank you for that feedback. In relation to what? Now, is it in relation to the expensive holiday they're going to buy? Is it in relation to the expensive hairdo they have every month? Is it expensive in relation to their monthly gym membership phase? You need to get a sense of perspective here, which is what you were talking about, Nina, that perspective. And then, as you say, it's a bit like tennis, and you stay on your side of the court. You do not want to be fudging it and fluffing around this stage. But that, just wanted to throw that into the mix.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you, Dawn. That's a really great question to ask.
Thank you.
And I think that they might, I guess they might just go and say, well, in relation to other therapists or coaches or whatever, because there's always a cheaper option.
And I think that's a very good point, Eileen. There is always a cheaper option. And when they say in relation to what, if you start talking about other professional services, accountants, lawyers, dentists, colonic therapists, anybody who's properly trained, insured, professionally accredited, etc. So yes, you can go to a beginner in any category, or you can go to a middle range person, or you can go to an expert like Nina or a master in some other field. So again, it kind of comes down to what you pay for. And you ask, if you say that this is your price, which element of it do you not need? That would be another question, because once you start trying to take elements of the service away, they say, oh, no, I want that. Oh, well, in that case, you do need a middle level, or you do need an expert master or whatever. If they say, no, I don't need this, and I don't need that, and I don't need that, you can then say, okay, well, perhaps, a beginner practitioner is what you're looking for. But 9 times out of 10, they'll say, no, they don't want to lose any of those value-added things that you can offer.
Brilliant
Lisa
points. Absolutely
asks,
brilliant.
I want to increase my prices, but I often say my old prices. So it's that leap of faith we're talking about, isn't it, Nina?
Yes, that is a classic limiting belief. And I would encourage you, was it Lisa?
Lisa, yeah.
I would encourage you, Lisa, to write down your thinking about charging your higher price. And it's not coming from the prospect. It's not coming from the sales conversation. It's coming from within you. There is some fear about saying your higher price because you don't want to get a no. And it comes back, I'm guessing, to the fear of rejection. And I'd love to just talk about the fear of rejection, if that would be helpful to everyone, and how I overcame it. This was my biggest fear throughout my life, getting a no. It wasn't just in sales conversations, it was throughout life. I had to get people to like me and to accept me and to include me in all of these things. When I understood that no one can reject me, that's when everything changed. And I grew a thick skin, which has been hugely helpful in life. So no one can say no to me personally and reject who I am. So this is separating your service from you and who you really are. Mm. And I bet that when you may have had jobs previously where you had to sell someone else's product or program, and it felt okay, easy to do that because it wasn't yours. So if someone said no, that was okay. But then when we become coaches and we have to sell our own services, it becomes highly personal and we become very vulnerable, and it feels a bit scary to do that because, when someone says no at the end of a sales conversation, you're too expensive, or I don't have the time, I've got too many other programs, whatever the excuse is or the reason is, because sometimes we don't get the real reason in a sales conversation for a no, that's when it feels really, they've said no to me. And then we create meanings about that no. Well, they said no to me because they don't trust me to get the result. They don't think I'm very good at what I do. They think other people are better than me. So we make up all these meanings about the no. Now, if you don't give anyone permission to ever reject you and who you are, that no becomes so much easier. All they're saying is, no, it's not a good fit for me right now. That's all it is. So every event that happens is a neutral event. It becomes a neutral memory in that way. They said no to me. Okay, so what can I learn from this? Memories are great for learnings. What can I do better this time? Maybe if you record your conversations, you can play it back and think, well, that part I didn't really show my value very well in that part. Or when we talked about the money side, I didn't overcome the objections. I didn't dig deep enough, whatever. What can I learn from that? Memories are not there for us to create negative meanings about ourselves. They're not there to give us this stuff. This is what we're adding to a memory, which is harmful. So once we can stop creating those meanings, then it becomes easier to accept a no. And the no is how you get yeses. The more no's you get, the more yeses you're going to get. It's logical. The more people you talk to, the more yeses you're going to get. You're going to get much better at sales conversations. You're going to become much more experienced at them. You're going to become, adept at dealing with objections and showing your value. It's, you become a master. The more you do something, the more mastery you get. So get comfortable and get used to getting no's, because they don't reject you and who you are, because you never give them permission to do that. Who you are, your inherent value is 100%. It doesn't matter how many clients you have, how much money you have in your bank account, your inherent value is not involved in that conversation. All you're putting on the table is your service and how you can help that person. So separate those two things out. Another thing about rejection is that I don't believe there is such a thing as rejection. It's just a concept that some of us buy into. If you were to say to me, well, this is what rejection is, I would challenge you on that, because everyone has their own unique idea of what rejection is. So if you were to buy into the notion or think about the notion that there's no such thing as rejection, you never allow anyone to reject you ever in this world, then that's off the table. And so you can just focus then on how you can get a really good result for both of you in every sales call. Has that been helpful, Lisa?
In fact,
Great.
if we also think that no is actually a buying signal, you can flip it completely. I did my training 30 years ago just for the hell of it at the Yorkshire Evening Post. I thought their training was world class, and it was 2 weeks of on the call trying to sell advertising space to people who wanted to sell their cars privately, and we were never allowed to accept a no. It's probably one of the best trainings I ever did that set me up for the next 30 years in sales. But they told us no was just a buying signal, and you can turn it round to when would be a good time. When will you be interested? If not you, who will be? So you can use all your coaching questions to flip it. And one of the best things that, Nina said loads of great things today, but one of the best things is, it's just a conversation. It's not worth, getting yourself anxious about. And you can always bring your prices down, but you can't put them up. So just go in high. I remember hearing somebody like, I think it might have been Tony Robbins, said something like, whatever the figure is in your head, times it by 5 and say that's what your fee is. And then you can work down if you have to. But sometimes the client will just say, as Nina said, yeah, okay. I'll just share with you this little story. We used to have a B&B. We have a bit of a retreat here in northwest rural France. And I got this phone call. I'm a living foods practitioner and health coach. So I got this phone call from a family in Norway asking if they could come over New Year. And I thought, God, New Year, do I really want to work over New Year? I'll treble my prices. So they wanted raw food prep classes. It was a family. So I trebled my fee. And she went, oh, is that all? Done. Can you imagine how I was kicking myself that I was having to do all this planning to work on New Year's Eve, to host a family for a couple of days? And she actually wrote on the feedback, I would have paid double what you quoted at this time of year and what I've learnt. So it is all to do with our limiting self-beliefs.
It is. It's our own perception. And that's a wonderful story. So Tony Robbins said 5 times, and he's got something in that. And actually, you gave a brilliant illustration of the no's and how that conversation continues. It's not the end of the conversation. And I've found that actually the conversation becomes very interesting when they say no. It really opens you up because you think, well, I've got nothing to lose in this conversation. And that's where you can really get very genuine and I love this word curious. And I'd say in my conversations, I'm going to ask you lots of questions. I'm a very curious person. Well, why, what do you mean by that? Why do you say that, etc.? And you can really start digging into the no. And often you'll find that there's very little substance. So they just need a little bit of reassurance in 1 or 2 areas, and then they're ready to go ahead. So the no is not the end of the road. It's actually the beginning of a really great conversation where you just stop acting, stop having the fears, you just get into the meat of it.
And going back to your question, Lisa, about increasing your fears, obviously you've got a training course to offer. So perhaps there's an opportunity for levels, while you're building trust with new fans, that they come in at a lower fee. But if they love it and can see extra value, they're going to be prepared to pay more next time. And that will help build your confidence. There's a little joke I'll just share with you. It goes, and I'm terrible at jokes, so I'll do my best, but it's about an engineer who goes out to fix a photocopier, and he has a look at this machine, gives it a kick, and it works. And then he hands over a bill for £99, and the person goes, £99 for kicking my photocopier? He said, well, it's £1 for kicking it, but it's £98 for knowing where to kick it. And that was a summary of all his years training. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
Aileen, you want to ask a question?
Yes. So for example, I know that I've got a block because I've been working as a CBT therapist for a long time. So I just, I wanted to add coaching to it so that I could cover a bigger area, which which then helped me to take a client from being unwell to recovery, and then actually fulfilling and going for what they want in life. And but I think that being a psychotherapist previously, or still, it is a block for me because my colleagues who's got PhDs and doctorates, etc., they are, they charge session price, and they charge 130, 150 pounds per session. And so having been in that environment and for so long, I'm really finding it difficult to go from the session price. So even though I know, okay, I'm going to go for 6-session package or whatever, and I still find myself saying, oh, okay, per session is blah blah, and then the clients go, oh, that's too expensive. And so this is really new for me, and I'm aware that there's that block, but I think that being a psychotherapist and having all those people that I know who are psychotherapists or psychologists or clinical psychologists who are not charging more than 150, 60 pounds per session, I'm just thinking,
yeah,
it's a big leap, and I'm finding it, how do I justify this to myself? I think most importantly, as you said.
Yeah, and that's really great awareness again. And you have to, as you say, justify it to yourself first before you can justify it to any prospect. So there are a few things here. I know, we're coming up to the end, so I'll try and be brief. First of all, and this is said with the greatest respect, you're creating a story in your head. So this isn't real, it's not true, because there are psychotherapists, psychologists who are charging more than that, who are, selling the big result as a fee, as a one fee, rather than hour by hour sessions. There are definitely people who are doing that, who've transitioned past that. It's just your conditioned thinking, because this is how you've thought. You will say, this is my evidence. And remember, every limiting belief we have, the only way it can stay as a true within us is by us continually looking for evidence to support that limiting belief. So if you have that limiting belief that I can't charge a higher fee, I have to charge, session by session, I can only charge this amount, this is my ceiling, then you are continually looking for evidence to convince yourself that that's true. It's a fact. Now, there is lots of opposing evidence which is completely invisible to you right now, because you have that limiting belief. And once you release that limiting belief and you think, actually, the sky's the limit, I can charge what I want, as long as I'm providing great value and helping the client get the result, they will be willing to pay higher fees because they're doing it with other people. Then you will start seeing all the evidence to support that. So we have a choice in life. We can stay with our limiting thinking and keep finding evidence, but that means we play a smaller game in life. Or we could say, okay, these stories aren't serving me. I want to play full out. I want to see how far I can go. I want to see how many people I can impact. I want to help them get bigger results than ever, because this is a game of life. Let's get rid of these limiting beliefs. Let's install new empowering beliefs, and let's start finding the evidence for those new empowering beliefs. Because the truth is, the most successful people in your niches aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. they're the ones who have got their mindset in the right place where they can work with higher fee clients. They can put up their prices. They can have bigger programs. And that's all it is. It's just believing that you can have great sales conversations, that no's lead to yeses, which they absolutely do. I realized I made a big mistake about no's and yeses. I thought, well, I used to imagine 3 stepping stones, and I was on the middle stepping stone, and there was a no on one side of me and a yes on the other side, and I always wanted to go to the yes. And then I realized, actually, I'd got it wrong. There were 3 stepping stones, but I was on the first one. The no's were in the middle, and the yeses were on the 3rd stepping stone. And I had to go through the no's to get to the yeses. And, you know, again, we keep hearing again and again, the most successful people are the ones who are good with making mistakes. They're okay with getting no's. They're okay with, you know, having setbacks, because that just spurs them on more and more to prove to themselves that they can do it.
Something else I would add is, and I'm sure everybody else saw it, is that when Eileen was talking about being a psychotherapist and everything, and then she said, but I want to add coaching to my skill set because, you know, it's bigger results. She got very animated and started moving her arms around. The energy was different. And you answered your own question. Because we know that counselors and therapists are dealing with trauma and issues in the past. And as Deepak Chopra says, it's like walking in a circle in sand that you get entrenched deeper and deeper and deeper. Coaching is completely different. It's results orientated, it's future orientated, it's bigger, and it's the results that people are paying for. So that's why the fee structure is so very different. And I do empathize with what you said, Eileen, because when I did my training many years ago, I was in a room with psychotherapists, and they got quite angry with the coaching academy, saying, you can't possibly expect us to charge that. We've done 4 years training to, you know, do this, and this is a year-long coaching course, and you're saying we can charge 3 times this. But it's because it's the results, it's the difference you're making in somebody's life. And you were giving that body language when you were talking about it, so intuitively you already know the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple of minutes left. What questions, if any, would you like to ask before we leave Nina? As I say, she will be back doing a masterclass on Thursday, the 6th of May at 10 o'clock. And it's going to be a week-long celebration with 13 experts who are going to help us improve our sales mindset. Because that's the theme of International Coaching Week with the IAPC&M this year. It's sales, 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 so that you all get rid of all those blocks that are sabotaging you. But right now, in the last few minutes, anybody got anything else that they want to add?
Can I just say one thing?
Please do, Nina.
I would just like to encourage everyone to challenge your stories around sales conversations, and to know with 100% conviction that they are all made up. Each and every negative story is made up. You can, anything you create, you can uncreate, because it's all within you. It's never coming from the situation or, you know, anticipating the event. It's not coming from that. This is all coming from within you. So you choose your thoughts, because your thoughts are creating your reality. Thought by thought, you are creating your reality, your results. So choose wisely.
Thank you for that. And as usual, we always end our webinars with 60 seconds of quiet CPD time, because we know if we don't write down our key learning points, we're not likely to take action at the end of the week when we find 10 minutes to think, how do we do this week? So I'll set my stopwatch as usual, starting now. And in the chat box, on your CPD log, just make a note of your key learnings, please. Okay, if anybody has anything they want to share before we wrap up for the day, now is the time to do so. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you again, Nina. I can see thank yous and love, love, love all of this. Some great stuff, great boost, just what I needed to hear. So you've hit the mark, and what a wonderful way to start Monday morning, isn't it? Yeah, great comments there. Thank you, everybody. So stay safe, stay positive. Remember, no is just another part of the conversation, and keep going for it. Thank you for your time, Nina. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Bye-bye.